you're thinking about selling your historic home in Monte Vista, there's only one decision that will quietly influence everything about your listing: how quickly it sells, how strong your offers are, how buyers emotionally respond when they walk through the door, and even how much negotiating power you have during the contract. And that decision is how you prepare and stage your home before it ever hits the market. Because what most sellers don't realize is that buyers are not just evaluating their home logically, they are reacting to it emotionally within the first few minutes. And if there's any hesitation, any confusion about how the space works, or any feeling that the home is unfinished or unclear, that hesitation shows up in slower offers, weaker offers, and sometimes no offers at all. And in neighborhoods like Monte Vista, where homes have character, history, and unique layout, that effect becomes even more pronounced because buyers are often stepping into something that feels different from what they're used to. So if a home is not presented clearly, they don't always know how to interpret it. And when buyers don't understand something, they pause. And when they pause, your time on the market increases. So what we're going to do today is walk through the 10 most common questions sellers have about staging their historic Monte Vista home before listing. And we're going to go deeper than surface level advice, because this is not about decorating. It's about positioning your home so it launches strong from day one, attracts serious buyers immediately, and creates momentum instead of hesitation. So let's start with the first question. The first question sellers ask is, do I really need to stage my home if it already has character? And this is where we need to shift what you think about staging. Because staging is not about making your home look better, it's about making your home easier to understand. Historic homes often have defined rooms, unique layouts, and architectural details that don't always align with how modern buyers expect a home to function. So even if your home is beautiful, even if the function of each space is not immediately clear, buyers start guessing. And when buyers have to guess, they start to question. And when they question, they hesitate. So staging removes that friction by showing exactly how each space is used, how the furniture fits, how flow works, and what living in the home actually looks like. And that clarity creates confidence. Now let's move to the second question, which is, should I stage if the home is vacant or occupied? And the answer is yes in both cases. The approach is completely different depending on your situation. Vacant homes almost always need a full staging because empty rooms do not communicate scale well. They don't communicate warmth, and they don't help buyers visualize how the space functions. In fact, empty homes often feel smaller than they actually are, and they can feel disconnected or even cold. So bringing in furniture creates proportion, defines each space, and allows buyers to emotionally connect. Now, on the other side, if your home is occupied, staging becomes more about editing and refining what's already there. This is where many sellers underestimate what's needed because living in a home and presenting the home are two completely different things. What feels normal day to day often feels cluttered or distracted to a buyer. So this process may include removing excess furniture, makes sense, simplifying the spaces, depersonalizing, and in some cases bringing in additional pieces to elevate the look. And sometimes it even includes coordinating the removal of haul-off items so that no longer serve the presentation of the home. Because the goal is not just to clean up the space, it's to create a clear and intentional experience. Now, the third question is which rooms actually need to be staged. And this is where strategy matters more than budget. Because you don't have to stage every single room to get a strong result. But you do need to stage the right rooms. The living room, dining area, primary bedroom are the most critical because these spaces are where buyers form their emotional connection to the home. They are the anchor points that define how a home feels. Kitchens and bathrooms are typically styled rather than fully staged. It means they are simplified, clean, and presented in a way that feels intentional. And secondary bedrooms can either be staged or left minimal depending on your goals. But the key is this: your focus, your resources on the areas that drive the strongest first impression, because that's what determines how buyers experience the rest of the home. Now, the fourth question sellers often ask is, do I just need to declutter or do I need to do a full staging? And this is one of the biggest misunderstandings in the entire process because decluttering and staging are not the same thing. Declutter removes distractions, but it does not create direction. And staging is about direction. It shows buyers exactly how to use the space, how to place furniture, how the room functions, how it feels to live there. So in some cases, a home may only need decluttering and rearranging, But in many cases, especially historic homes, there's a gap between how the home is currently set up and how it needs to be presented to the market. And that's where staging fills in that gap. And sometimes that means bringing in new furniture. Sometimes it means removing what's there. And sometimes it's a combination of both. This is also where logistics comes into play, because preparation often includes more than just design. It can include coordinating like the cleaners, the movers, the donation pickups, the haul-off services, and having access to those resources is what makes the process efficient instead of overwhelming. Now let's move to the fifth question, which is how much does staging cost? And this is where we want to be very clear so you can make informed decisions. Staging is an investment. Pricing varies depending on the size of the home, the number of rooms, and whether a home is vacant or occupied. For vacant homes, full staging can range anywhere from approximately $2,000 on the lower end to $6,000 or more, depending on the scope. And that's per month, depending on how many items are needed. For occupied homes where you're just editing and maybe supplementing instead of fully furnishing, costs are lower, often ranging from a couple hundred to a few thousand. The key here is not to look at the staging as a standalone expense, but as part of your overall listing strategy, because the way your home presents online and in person directly impacts how quickly it sells and how strong your offers are. And what we consistently see is homes that are staged appropriately tend to attract more serious buyers early, create stronger emotional connection, and reduce time on market, which ultimately protects your pricing and your leverage. And that's really the goal, not just to list your home, but to launch it in a way that positions it to perform from the very beginning, because your first impression of your home when you hit the market is the most powerful moment in the entire listing cycle. And everything we're talking about here is designed to maximize that moment. Now let's continue with the sixth question, because this is where the process becomes very real for sellers. And that is, how does staging actually work from start to finish? Because one of the biggest reasons sellers delay or avoid staging is simply because they don't understand the process, what it looks like, how much effort it takes for them, and sometimes it feels unclear. It feels bigger than it actually is, so we're going to simplify it. Staging can be done in person, sometimes virtually. We're staging professional in person is where they walk through your home and they evaluate what is needed based on the layout, the condition, how the home will be positioned on the market, and this is where design begins to take shape. Which rooms need fully staging? Which rooms need styling? What needs to be removed? What needs to stay? What needs to be added? And with that consultation, you receive a clear plan along with a quote. And that quote outlines exactly what is included. How many rooms, the level of staging, how long the staging will remain in place. And once that's approved, the next step is scheduling an install. This is where a lot of sellers are surprised, because staging installation is actually very efficient. In most cases, it happens within a single day. Over a few hours, depending on the size of the home, the furniture delivered, the arranged, the artwork, accessories, and things like that. And really, the home is transformed into a finished product in just a few hours that is ready for photographs. And that transformation is often dramatic, because what was previously a lived-in or empty space now feels intentional, cohesive, and ready for the market. Once staging is complete, the home is photographed, and this is where staging becomes even more important, because your online presence is your first showing. And if your home does not photograph well, buyers may never step inside. So staging is not just about an in-person experience, it's about how your performs digitally. Now, after photography and listing, the staging remains in place during showings, and this is critical because consistency matters. The experience buyers see online should match what they feel when they walk in the door, and that alignment builds trust and confidence. Now let's move to the seventh question, which is, how does billing work and how do sellers typically pay for staging? Because this is another area where clarity matters. Most staging companies operate on a structured pricing model, meaning you're paying for a defined scope of work and for a defined period of time. In many cases, there is an upfront cost that covers design, delivery, installation, all of those, and it often lasts for about 30 to 60 days. And if the home remains on the market beyond that time frame, there may be extension fees, usually on a monthly basis, and those fees vary depending on how much furniture and inventory is in the home. This is where strategy comes in. because staging is designed to reduce your time on market. So ideally, you're not really extending long term. Now, in some situations, there may be flexibility. Sometimes staging costs can be coordinated alongside other pre-list preparation expenses. And this is where working with a team that understands how to structure these decisions becomes valuable, because it's not just about cost, it's about timing, cash flow, overall listing strategy. And now let's move to the 8th question, which is what happens when the home sells and how does the removal work? Because this is something sellers often don't think about until the end, but it's actually a very smooth process. Once your house goes under contract and you're approaching closing, the staging company schedules removal of the furniture and accessories, and this is typically coordinated either right before closing or immediately after. We always do it right before closing, depending on your arrangement and the needs of the transaction. The key thing is to understand that this is handled entirely by the staging company. You are not responsible for moving anything, coordinating labor, or managing the logistics. Everything is removed efficiently and professionally so the home can transition cleanly to the new buyer. Now let's move into the 9th question, and this is where staging becomes a true strategic advantage. What are the actual benefits of staging beyond just appearance? Because this is where sellers often underestimate the impact. Staging is not just about making a home look better, it's about making a home perform better. It improves photography, which increases online engagement. It creates emotional connection during showings, which increases buyers' interest. It clarifies layout and function, which reduces hesitation. And most importantly, it positions your home competitively against other listings, because buyers are not evaluating your home in isolation. They're comparing it to everything else they have seen. And when your home feels more complete, more intentional, and easier to understand, it naturally rises to the top of that comparison. And what that translates into is a stronger initial traffic, more serious buyers, and offer a shorter time on market, and in many cases, better offers, because buyers are more confident in what they are seeing, and confidence is what drives action. Now, before we move into the final question, I want to pause here and highlight something that's important, because this is where sellers either get it right or miss the opportunity. Staging is not something you do after your home sits on the market. No. Staging is something you do before your home ever goes live, because your first week on the market is your most powerful window. That's when your home is new. That's when buyer attention is highest. And that's when you have the greatest opportunity to create momentum. And if your home is not presented its best during that window, well, you don't get that moment back. That's why preparation matters so much. Now let's move on to the 10th question. And the 10th question is, how do I know what my home specifically needs? And this is where everything we've talked about comes together. Really, because no two homes in Monte Vista are the same. Layouts vary, conditions vary, levels of updating vary, and the seller situations vary. So the right staging approach is never a one-size-fits-all. Some homes need a full vacant staging where multiple rooms are completely furnished to define the space. And some homes need partial staging where the key rooms are enhanced while others remain minimal. And some homes need preparation first, decluttering, moving excess items, coordinating haul-offs, simplifying the spaces, and then layering and styling or staging afterwards. And this is where having access to the right resources become critical, because staging is not just about furniture, it's about the entire preparation process: cleaning, organizing, editing, sometimes even minor repairs or adjustments. And when all those pieces come together, the home presents as a cohesive and intentional home, and that's what buyers respond to. Now let's talk about what sellers often get wrong, because this is just as important as what to do. One of the biggest mistakes is waiting too long, waiting till the home is already on the market, and then trying to improve presentation after feedback comes in. And by that point, you've already missed your strongest window of attention. Another mistake is under-preparing, assuming that a quick clean, minor adjustments are enough when the home actually needs more structure, more direction. And another common mistake is over-personalization, leaving too many personal items, photos, and unique design choices that make it harder for buyers to see themselves in the space. All of these mistakes lead to the same result: hesitation, longer time on market, reduced leverage. Now let's walk through a quick scenario so you can see how this plays out in real life. Imagine two similar homes in Monte Vista come on the market at the same time. One is clean but not staged. Furniture is mismatched. The spaces feel slightly unclear. And while the home has character, Buyers leave with questions. The second home is staged intentionally. Rooms are defined. Scale is clear. The home feels cohesive and complete, and buyers walk through and immediately understand how to live in the space. Which home do you think generates more interest, more confidence, and stronger offers? And the answer is almost always the staged home. Not because it's better, but because it's clearer, and clarity is what drives decision making. Now let's bring this back to your goals as a seller. Your goal is not just to list your home. Your goal is to create momentum, to attract serious buyers early, to reduce time on the market, and to position your home in a way that protects your pricing and your negotiation position. Staging is one of the most effective tools to help you do that, because it controls how your home is experienced from the very first impression all the way through to closing. When you approach staging strategically, not as an afterthought, but as part of your launch plan, everything about your listing becomes stronger. So if you're thinking about selling your historic home in Monte Vista and you want to understand exactly what your home needs to come to market strong, whether it's full staging, partial staging, decluttering, coordinating preparation, we offer a confidential strategy consultation where we walk through your property, build a clear plan, connect you with our trusted vendors, and help you position your home to sell as efficiently and successfully as possible. And if this was helpful, make sure to subscribe, because we break down topics like this every week so you can approach your real estate decisions with clarity, confidence, and a clear strategy. At this point, I want to give you a little more depth about something that doesn't always get talked about, but has real impact on how your home performs once it's live, and that's staging influences buyer behavior beyond just the first impression, because what happens after a buyer walks through your home is just as important as what happens during the showing. This is where staging continues to work for you even when you're not there, because buyers don't just walk through once and forget about it. They leave, they compare, they revisit photos, they talk it through with family or advisors. They stack your home against every other property they've seen, and if your home felt clear, complete, and easy to understand, it stays on top of mind. But if there's any confusion, any sense of something felt unfinished or unclear, that uncertainty grows over time, and that's when buyers either move on or start building in hesitation into their offers. And this is why staging is not just about the showing. It's about how your home holds up its position in the buyer's mind after they leave. Now let's talk about the difference between a home that is nice and a home that is compelling, because many sellers assume that if their home is clean and well maintained, that's enough. But in today's market, especially in neighborhoods like Monte Vista, where buyers are often comparing multiple historic properties, being nice is often not enough to stand out. Compelling homes are the ones that feel intentional, they feel finished, they tell a clear story, and staging is what helps create that story. I'm Caroline Deckard with the Park Properties Group at the Phyllis Browning Company. Suzanne and I, who's my business partner, we specialize in helping sellers in Monte Vista, Alamo Heights, Terrell Hills, Olmos Park work to get their homes on the market and have the best value for that first week on market, first 10 days on market. We understand that staging a home is more than just about placing furniture. It's about creating clarity. I hope you give us a call. We'd love to talk. Have a great one.